This episode is brought to you by bewatersmart.info. Is your yard summer strong? A summer strong yard is tough enough to take the heat and still look its best. Here's 2 ways to help. First, replace your thirsty lawn with native and low water use plants and install drip irrigation and high efficiency rotor sprinklers. You'll use less water and have a healthier, happier yard. Second, here's how to help your trees grow strong enough to handle the summer heat. First, check the soil with a moisture meter or screwdriver to see if it's dry. If you need a water, set up a soaker hose or drip irrigation at the outer edges of the tree's branches. Water your trees at least once a month. Find more helpful tips and videos at bewatersmart.info.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi everyone, welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host Marlene and this is your December to-do list and as well as your question and answer segment. And that's right, there was no November one because, well, life got in the way. But here I am for December, and with me, of course, for this is Joe. Joe, say hello.
Yo.
Whoa. It's quite different. All right. So yeah, life got in the way. We're putting this one out. I'm just going to throw this out to people. I'm not going to talk too much cats, but that is pretty much our life. But we are doing the paperwork for a nonprofit because that's our life now. It's still gardening, still plants, of course, but I'm throwing it out there. We need a name. We need a creative name for our nonprofit cat rescue. And I like alliteration. My favorite name and my favorite rescue is Furball Farm Sanctuary. Now, I'm throwing this out there to everyone. If you have something, email me because I'm tapped out with creativity with names. And you're no help.
Okay, first of all,
your name's Joe.
I'm doing
you come from a family of very creative names. Joe Jr.
I'm doing all of the paperwork.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You don't want me to do paperwork that goes directly to the IRS. Trust me, you do not want me to do that. I mean, I can, but you do not want me to. Mm-hmm.
I'm doing all the paperwork.
And I'm collecting all the cats.
You're collecting all the cats.
Yes.
I believe I'm the only one that's had a name so far.
No, I've had a few names. What is your name?
No, go ahead. What's your names?
Okay, mine was Friendly Ferals, Forgotten Felines.
Okay, you told me neither of those.
Well, yeah, I didn't say I wanted them. Thus, why I'm throwing it out to people. My sister came up with Whisker Gardens, Whisker Haven Acres. There's some others that are not PC or even G rated, so I can't say them. But yeah, no.
And what was mine?
Beetle Goat Enterprises.
No, that was one.
That was one. The other one I can't remember.
Beetle Goat Global Chicken Alliance for Cats.
Yes.
And the 4 is the number 4.
Yes. Apparently you aren't on social media a lot and you don't know quite what gets people roped in and says exactly what they are.
This says exactly what it is.
Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to talk forever about cat stuff. But anyways, if you have a creative name for a cat rescue, cat sanctuary, send it to me. We're in desperate need of that because we're going to have that up and going. But of course, I've also been working, with plants because that's what I do, and gardening. And it's December. We finally are getting some rain. Before I start this is your December to-do. I just want to say, of course, this is coming from my zone, which is 9B. And interestingly, last month, USDA changed their garden zones. It was, you might have seen it, just due to sort of climate change. They have reconfigured, and I looked, and I am in Winters, California, and I am still in 9B, so ours did not change, but yours may have changed. So you just need to go to usda.gov and look at your zones. And so maybe they've changed. So now if you sort of are looking at plants, if nurseries or plants label them when you're doing some research, that might change a bit. It's very odd that we get some major garden news, but that's one right there.
So, question.
Yes.
All right. Are garden zones a globally recognized thing?
No, because this is USDA, United States.
So, say over in Europe, right? Don't we correlate here closely to like parts of Spain and Italy?
Yeah, we're a Mediterranean climate.
Okay.
Yes.
So then over there,
I don't know what they do, and that's a good
You
point.
don't know what they do.
I'm sure they have their own zones.
did they change?
I did not look, Joe.
Well, I want to know if there's like been a consistent, motion.
I'm going to guess if any countries could get together and decide on something, it would probably be gardening since it's nothing else. So possibly, but that is a good question. I'll look into that.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to come ask you about that one.
Okay. That's good.
You should probably
That's
write
good.
it down.
But U.S. is in the forefront of gardening change. And
But you just said you don't know if other places
yeah,
have
I'm just
changed.
going to say USA all the way. Maybe we're lagging behind. Maybe they changed them years ago. We're lagging behind. But guess what? USA all the way until I know, right? All right. So your December to do. Before the rains came, I was out in the garden and, it's the same thing every year. It's like, oh, the peppers are going to make it. Oh, everything is so great. Maybe my tree dahlia will actually bloom this year. And then no, as soon as we have a frost, everything sort of melts and just, melts basically and dies. So last weekend I was out.
We had a frost?
Our frost was at the end of mid-October.
Right. Okay.
Yes, I scraped the date on my windshield when we had frost. So we had some early frost, and that didn't kill anything, but it was that consecutive hours of frost that finally did everything in. And so my tree dahlias, I've had them for like 4 years, still haven't bloomed. They don't die, they die back. So I'm cutting those back. I cut peppers back. I always just cut them back, cut the eggplant back, with the hopes that maybe because they are perennial, they might come back. And besides, the roots, if they're healthy plants, all those roots are just going to be organic material. Different with tomatoes. I sort of pull them out to inspect the roots to look for root knot nematode, and they're easier to pull out. So I was cleaning up the garden, cutting things back, leaving, of course, a lot of leaf debris, a lot of cut back sunflowers. Because remember, you don't want a pristine garden. You don't need that pristine soil. You want to leave stuff for overwintering beneficial insects, birds and animals, all that stuff. Organic debris as it breaks down, of course, is going to be food for microorganisms and just create compost. So you don't need that pristine garden. So basically cut back the garden, clean up. For your winter vegetables, if you have some, you may be noticing some cabbage aphids. They are gray aphids. They're in lots of clusters and they have a lot of wax on them. So the soap sprays don't really work. Hose blast is the best. And cabbage loopers, usually this time of year, it's too wet and cold for them. They were in earlier, so you might have used some BT. I went and handpicked a whole bunch and then I realized, oh, there's a lot. I better go spray. I did 1 round of BT, got rid of them. I already have cauliflower and broccoli and kohlrabi I need to harvest like now. And also your fruit trees are probably dormant. So if we get a dry spell, if you have a dry spell, spray for peach leaf curl with liquid copper and spray for your dormant sprays, an oil to kill any overwintering insects or larvae or eggs of your annoying pests. Order seeds for spring. Next month, January is bare root. So just be prepared that bare root's coming out in the nursery. So your bare root fruit trees, bare root roses. So if you have an area where you really want to plant and it's really sopping wet, you could cover it with plywood or plastic to try to keep the ground a little more moist. So when you dig up, especially in clay soils, you're not creating large bricks when you dig up the soil. And so that's basically it. You're going to have weeds. You could smother the weeds with adding some compost. Things to plant. There might be bare root asparagus in nurseries right now. You could plant bok choy, kale, onion sets, and radish seeds. But really this sort of month is just sort of a cleanup and wait until January and February. Go ahead, Joe.
You know what you didn't plant? I don't know that you didn't, but I know that you didn't.
Kale?
No.
Because I think I planted kale.
Okay. This was a request
Oh, no.
2 years running.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now you're just doing it just to spite me.
No, I'm doing it because I can't remember. What?
The big radishes.
Oh, daikon.
Yeah.
No, I planted them last year.
No,
Did I not?
you did not.
Okay, I'll plant them. I've been bad with planting radishes. I haven't been quite in the garden as much as I should. Just I'm the only one really at work. So
Wah.
I
Okay,
know.
describe what a daikon radish is.
It's the elongated white radish.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a
Yeah.
big ass radish.
It's that, or you could use your words and call it big ass radish.
Yeah.
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 You know what is removed from
Which, by the way, speaking of which,
Uh-huh.
in big ass vegetables.
okay, yeah.
Remember that episode a while back where I brought up the British guy
Oh
that
yeah.
grows
yeah.
big vegetables
Mhm. Yeah.
that I still see in Twitter all the time,
Wow.
who you immediately disparaged.
Eh,
Yeah, you did. Yeah. He's been growing some quite big radishes.
Well, why
I don't
don't
know
you
if they're-
just go marry him then? What I was going to say was, so that giant radish that I tried to grow a few years ago, I think 2 years in a row from Baker Creek, I looked for their seeds again and they don't have them. So I think it was such a novelty and such a like, okay, this is ridiculous that we're not going to carry this anymore. But I do like radishes, and I you know what it is? I just keep forgetting. I went through all my seeds and I thought I had them, but I kept the packages of empty ones just because I don't write.
You know why
anyways.
that's weird?
Why?
Because, I mean, your listeners probably don't know this,
Uh-huh.
but you don't do the write-ups for the show, writing up the things that you talk about?
Not for these, but for all the other ones I do.
What do you mean?
All the ones where I have guests, I do.
Well,
the
yeah,
write-up.
you do. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
The transcription. How about
yes. Mhm.
that? And in your to-do list,
Uh-huh.
you always put radishes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
bottom.
how do you not remember radishes?
I told you, I go through and I'm like, oh, I have radishes.
It's on this list.
And then when I go to plant them, I'm like, oh, my radish seeds are empty. And I don't want to just plant boring radishes. I want exciting radishes. So by the time I get around to order. Anyways.
Okay.
That's
So no
continue.
radishes.
No, I'm not saying radishes I could actually plant in February,
All right.
January, February, and get another crop. So that's a nice thing about radishes. Okay, now that you've just radish shamed me. Okay, get into some questions, Joe.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. All right. You went over the entire to-do, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Waterless amaryllis from Linda. I bought a waterless amaryllis. Can it be planted in a pot later on? I feel like I'm missing something on this question. Some kind
Okay.
of context. What is a
Yes.
waterless amaryllis?
Well, of course I'm going to explain that.
And what is it in now?
Well, it's one of those amaryllis that you see this time of year. Thus, you usually see amaryllis only this time of year. And what they do is they take the bulb, because it's a bulb, and they take the bulb and they dip it into hot wax.
What?
So the whole entire
Oh,
bulb is
okay.
coated in wax.
Right.
Have you seen that?
I think you've talked about it
Yes,
before.
talked about it before. So, and generally what they do is they cut the roots off at the bottom so they get a smooth area to dip and have the wax go over. So basically it's a one-hit wonder. Bulb has all the energy, nutrients, water in it for that year's growth. So if you buy a quote waterless or wax dipped amaryllis, it's going to grow a flower and bloom for you, and that's what people want. It may even put the foliage on afterwards, as they do normally, but it doesn't have any roots to then take up more nutrients, more water to continue its life, so you won't get any blooms or growth the following year. So basically, it's considered an annual. So once it's done blooming, nothing's going to happen. It's just you have to throw it away because they've cut the roots off and they've cut and then dipped it in hot wax. So it's like, if I was dipped in hot wax, I wouldn't want to continue life either. But so that's it. There's nothing really you could do. They've done the deed. You'll get beautiful blooms, but it's a one-hit wonder. Versus other amaryllis that you buy that have roots, once they bloom, the bloom's going to die down. You'll have some foliage come off afterwards. Let that foliage then die down. Amaryllis normally bloom at the end of August, so if you have sort of a bright sunny or morning sun afternoon shade, you could plant them in the ground as long as it doesn't like freeze a lot where you're at, or you could keep them in a pot and they'll bloom year after year. So Some amaryllis never even seem to go dormant. We have some at work that just say perpetually like green because we continuously water them. So it really depends, but most amaryllis are perennials. But if you buy the wax dipped ones, no.
So nothing she can do.
Nothing she could do. It's not her. It's the process of what they did.
Okay. All right. Banana plant.
Mm-hmm.
From Tina. Is this your Tina?
No, not my Tina.
You have multiple Tinas. None
I
of your
do.
Tinas?
I do. No, none of my Tinas.
Okay.
They know to text me.
Banana plants. Do they need to come inside during the winter? If so, do they need to be wrapped for protection? Well, no, never mind.
Don't.
If they don't come inside,
Uh-huh.
do they need to be wrapped for protection from cold weather? At what age will they duplicate and produce fruit? My question is,
Uh-huh.
this is a duplicate
Yes.
question.
Yes.
She ties that to producing fruit.
Yes.
So is duplication like dependent? Is fruit production dependent upon duplication,
No.
whatever that process
No.
is? No.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to hit all these points, Joe.
Well,
Gonna hit
I'm
all
making
these
sure
points.
that you do. I'm lining up what the
Okay.
critical points are.
Okay, so banana plants. There's a lot of species, or I guess I shouldn't say species. There's like two main species. There's a lot of varieties out there. The number one variety of what people eat is Cavendish banana. And that is your stereotypical banana. And then there's various bananas that have sort of the smaller bananas. And then there's ornamental bananas that do not produce edible fruits at all. So it's sort of hard to say without knowing the banana, but I'm going to cover a few. So Cavendish, say Cavendish just because it's the most popular edible one, that will take temperatures down to 20 degrees. So if you're in an area where it doesn't get below 20 degrees, you don't need to do anything. Will the foliage look great? No, not at all. Those big leaves are going to be hit by the cold. They're going to look brown. They're going to look bad. Do not cut any of them off. It's acting as a blanket. If we get a very cold frost below that, the whole entire plant may die down, but the plant itself could come back. But that's very rare for it to be that cold for a Cavendish to die down. Now, if it's something where it's not as hardy, if you don't know the name, when in doubt, of course, bring it up. If it's in a pot, bring it up closer to the house. Just err on the side of caution. Now, as far as when they produce, that's the same thing. What is the variety of banana? So Cavendish, we grow a lot of these at work. So in the Tree of Life, in one of the core biology classes, they put on their floor map of the Tree of Life, they put banana plants, and there's like 4 labs. So we have about 20 Cavendish bananas growing all the time, and they need to be relatively small. So what happens is when they get about, I would say about 4 feet, they start pupping, meaning new plantlets start growing from the base. They're clones. They're baby plants. And we've had bananas form at the conservatory a few times, but it could take a while. It could take up to 2 years to form bananas, and that's with it not dying back in the cold. So basically, it will start producing babies before it flowers. And the problem is if the mother plant dies and there's no babies that have formed, you've lost the whole entire plant. So it's monocarpic. Once the mother plant blooms, sets fruit, it dies, but you should have all these little baby plants coming up off the sides, and then so it will continue its life there. So a lot of the tropical ones don't need to be protected as well. But like I said, when in doubt, bring it up closer to the house. And yeah, we grew up with bananas in San Diego, and they were the plantain bananas. I don't know what variety they were, but I just remember the cluster of bananas dripping sap constantly. And yeah, and then there was just big clusters as they produced bananas that we never ate, and then the mother plant died, so we had this big cluster of them. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, they're most of them are more cold hardy than most people realize. I think the most cold hardy one is the Musa Bazju, which is like cold hardy down to like negative 10 degrees. And there's also like the blue banana that's not quite as blue as like some of the pictures show. But yeah, 2 years for fruit if it doesn't get hit, if everything is adequate and it's happy, but it'll produce babies earlier than that.
All right. See, without my questions, you would not have had proper guidance.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay, next question. It's from Sheila.
Okay.
Where do you think Sheila's from?
Don't know.
Guess.
Cincinnati.
Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Sheila is a very Australian name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's just Sheila. Wait a minute. Isn't that what they say? What they say? It says Sheila? No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, in Crocodile Dundee, they did.
And that's our only reference for Australia. I mean, you've been there twice, but one time you were there for literally 24 hours.
I was there way more than twice.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for probably accumulation of 3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. He landed in Australia once for 24 hours and then flew back. That's when you got kicked out of the taxi cab because he had a fight with his girlfriend and he kicked you out in the middle of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah. You don't remember that.
Not
That's
at
how
all.
sleep deprived you were.
Sounds like a good story. Where
And
was
then
I?
I don't know. I was sleeping and you had to call our friend. This was before smartphones. And you had to call our friend and say, I'm dropped off in the middle of this was when gearing up for the Sydney Olympics, I think. And then you were like, I'm dropped off in the middle of Sydney somewhere and I don't know how to get to my hotel room. And he had to look on a map and figure out how to get you there. And I'm sleeping the whole way, not knowing this is going on.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, don't remember that at all.
I'm glad I could remember these stories and you can't.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
All right. Butterfly bush.
Uh-huh.
She thinks it has a ton of new growth on it. She lives in Arnold, which is in the Central Valley zone.
They're colder than us, so I'm guessing they're about Arnold. They're
Yeah.
probably maybe.
Oh, I guess Arnold is in the hills.
Yeah, it's in the foothills
I was
of the
thinking
Sierras.
somewhere else.
Yeah, they might be a 7,
Okay.
an 8 or a 7. I always think of it colder, but when I say probably about 7, I think they get a little dusty in the snow.
Maybe. She lives in Arnold. She doesn't know if she should cut it back or just let it be. Well, she answers your question. Soon it will be covered with snow.
Okay, so yeah, definitely a 7.
I love the blossoms
Or 6.
and the critters. I like to watch them from my window.
Okay.
What do I do?
All right.
Can I cut this thing down?
Okay.
Back.
Okay. So butterfly bush, buddleia, has the very elongated flower clusters, various colors it comes in. I think the dark night is like a really dark purple. There's white, there's pink, lavender. I have some dwarf varieties that I absolutely love because they only get about 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide, and they're blooming all the time. It's named butterfly bush because it is a butterfly magnet for pollinators, but it's not just butterflies. A lot of other pollinators go to it. Fairly drought tolerant, deciduous shrub. The dwarf ones are nice because they're very nice and compact, but the taller ones that could get up anywhere from 6 feet tall, even taller, are not known for their structure. They're very gangly, and a lot of people don't like them, especially when they're not blooming because they just look like all these very thin twigs and sort of sparse growth at the base as far as leaf goes. And it's very tempting to just say, okay, this thing is so gangly, I'm going to cut it back. But that's not necessarily the best thing to do. So usually the best thing to do is if it's very gangly is just to cut it down by 1/3 or to half, not all the way down to the ground. And you're okay with the cold because it survives down to -10 degrees. So the cold is not going to affect it. And so it has new growth now, probably because we had a little bit of a warm kick and it probably put on new growth because it's one of those that is it's deciduous sort of based on the cold. Get a really cold, it'll drop its leaves, but if the temperature stays warm, it sort of stays semi-evergreen. So I really wouldn't do much at this point. I would say anything on it, sort of protecting it from the cold. I don't want it to break a lot from the snow if you have a heavy snow load. So I would say cut it down to about 2/3. So say it's about 6 feet tall. Joe, do some math. I was just going to make something up, but 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet. That's half, but cut it down to 2. Don't cut it all the way down to the ground and just let it be. And then when the snow melts, it'll grow back. But that's it. They're very no fuss plants. It's just the way they look. It's very tempting to want to cut them back, but they'll grow back and bloom in spring if you cut them back.
So
now.
don't even prune it.
No, I was saying cut it back.
Cut it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
cut it back.
Got
Yeah.
it.
And for
Got
her, I say cut it back more because I'm afraid if the snow hits it and there's a big snow load, it might break more branches and she's going to have to cut those in spring anyways.
Oh, the branches are that thick where they can actually break from snow?
They're that thin.
Hmm.
Well, I don't know how much. Yeah, they're very thin. It's not a sturdy plant. So, yeah.
Okay. Right. Walter. I've had this pineapple plant for about 2.5 years. When am I going to see a goddamn pineapple?
Did he really say that? Did Walter really say
did.
that?
Walter did.
Did.
Yes.
He didn't even
He said
say
worse.
He did. He said worse. You
Yeah,
just made it
I edited
PG.
it.
Really,
Yeah.
Walter?
Yeah.
Really? Good for Walter. Really express how angry he is about that pineapple.
It was like watching Pulp Fiction.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how he spoke?
Like Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh my gosh,
in
Walter.
Fiction.
Walter. Anyways, okay. I hear you though, Walter, because just like we have to grow a lot of bananas at work, I currently have probably over 50 pineapples growing at work. We have this weird miniature pineapple that's not edible.
Well, I don't think Walter hears you at all, or you hear Walter at all. You have 50 pineapples.
Yeah.
Walter doesn't have a single goddamn
No.
pineapple.
Did I say they have fruit?
Well, you said you have 50 pineapples.
Plants.
You missed a word. You said pineapples.
Yes. Okay. So I have probably about 30 of your.
Somewhere Walter was like, that goddamn plant lady's got 50 pineapples.
Yeah,
And
no.
she's complaining.
I have one forming right now. Probably have about 20 to 30 quote standard of the traditional pineapples you see at the store. And they're that way because we bought them at the store. You cut the tops off, you let them callus until the bottoms are dry, and then we plant them directly into pure pumice because remember they grow in the lava fields, so they want very loose aerated soil and non-soil really. And then we grow them in the greenhouse under LED lights, very bright, very warm temperatures year round, and it still takes us about 2 years to produce fruit. So if you're trying to grow them without greenhouse conditions where they are like in winter getting the lower light and getting the cold, that could be setting them back more. So it could take up to 3 years for them to fruit. As long as they're not mushing out, you should be able to get fruit, but it's just going to take a longer than if you had that steady, constant warm temperatures and consistent light. But yeah, no, they take a while to produce. And that's why we have to have so many because they need 4 or 5 of them in labs per quarter. And so we have to have a continuous sort of staggered approach to them. And so I have some that are very small that were just tops cut off, calloused, and put in pots. And then I have others that are maybe about a year old. And then I have others that should be of fruiting size. And then, of course, when they fruit, the mother plant dies. But sometimes there's a side plant that comes off. And then, but I'm not getting much luck from those side plants. So I think I need to start with just pure new ones. But yeah, it's a fun plant to grow. It's not an easy, fast plant to grow, especially if you don't have a greenhouse.
How's it fun?
You get to see a pineapple grow and sort of fun.
Apparently not.
Well, in 3 years. 3 years if he's lucky.
You were the most impatient person in the world.
I know. That's why.
This does not sound like a fun plant.
Isn't that amazing that I garden and I'm the most impatient person in the world? And it's like one of the most, like, the hobbies that you need the most patience for. Isn't that amazing, Joe? You should be proud of me. Thank you. I take that as a yes, you're so proud of me. Mm-hmm.
This is from Mary Beth.
Okay.
How do I take care of bromeliads after the flower blooms and subsequently dies?
Speaking of pineapples, so pineapples are a bromeliad. Did you know that, Joe?
I didn't, but I can see it.
Okay. Bromeliaceae.
Yeah.
So most bromeliads, so there's a lot of bromeliads that are...
I mean, they're scaly, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Aren't they?
The fruits, you mean?
Bromeliads.
They're spiny along the edges of the leaves. A lot of them have spines, not all.
Okay.
Serrated edges, I should say, not true spines.
All right.
Yeah. So most bromeliads are epiphytic, meaning they grow in the canopies of trees, and a lot of them are for South America. I think there's one species of bromeliad from Africa that we have at the conservatory. But like I was discussing with pineapples, once they flower fruit, the mother plant dies. Call that, and this is the same thing with bananas. It's called monocarpic. But by then, new plantlets, pups, should be growing from the side of them. So it continues their genetic lifespan. Now, the problem, and I think you've heard me mention this before, is if you get the bromeliads as a gift plant, they're sold as gift plants, meaning they're not growing, they're not being sold to gardeners who are growing it for the plant and growing for the pups and waiting. These nurseries and the growers want to get them to the store quick. So what they do is they pump them full of like ethylene and other plant hormones that will get the plant to color up and flower quicker. And so a lot of the times it looks like a flower that you see, but it's actually the leaves forming different colors. Some of them do have fabulous flowers, but others of them, their flower clusters are deep in the center of those leaves and they're not very showy. And it's in fact the leaves that color up. So once they flower, and if they form fruit, which is very odd, if they flower, the plant is going to die. So the problem with the gift ones is they've been pushed to form these flowers sooner than they normally would, forced into maturity quicker, but they still don't have time to produce the little baby pups on the side. So if you have a bromeliad and it flowered and there's no pups on the side, keep it until the whole entire mother plant has died. But by then, if there's no pups that have formed off to the side, you've lost it and nothing's going to help. So if you have a bromeliad and there's pups forming off the side, still the same thing. Wait for the mother plant to pretty much die off because it's still photosynthesizing. It's still getting energy and creating photosynthates that go into those pups. And then you could just cut it off at the base and then continue with those new plants. But, they prefer inside conditions where it's cold. They have the leaves that are forming the cups. So in the wild, that's where they collect the water. They store water there because they're growing in the canopies of trees. So they're not in soil. So they don't have that constant access to moisture. Dead bugs, insects, bird poo falls into those cups and forms compost. But if you have one at home, you can water the soil base and put water in the cups as well. Where was I just not that long ago where there was a whole bunch? Oh, I was in Marin. So Marin County, coastal north of San Francisco. And I was at a friend's house and their backyard had all these bromeliads growing in the backyard. So they're tropical, but as long as there's not a heavy frost, they'll do fine. I have a friend in Sacramento as well who grows some bromeliads in his yard. So they're protected from the frost as well. And he has sort of some misters going on. So as long as there's humidity, not frost, and they're a little protected from direct afternoon sun, you can actually grow them outside. But if you're in an area with any frost at all, I would say where they're going to be exposed to temperatures below 45, they need to be grown inside. Some get incredibly huge. We have some species at work that we just don't have space. We're constantly cutting the leaves back. And if you're allergic to pineapples, the leaves of a lot of bromeliads have the same chemical. So between the serrated edges that scrape you up and the chemical in there that I am forgetting, I break out completely when I'm working with bromeliads. So much fun. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so this is funny. So far we've had three monocarpic plants, and
what?
Meaning once the mother plant grows, it dies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, the bananas, the bromeliad. Well, the bromeliads and the pineapple, same family, but yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions?
No, that was it.
That was it?
Yeah, wasn't it?
I don't know. Do you want to check?
Amaryllis,
Mm-hmm.
banana plant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tina. Are there
Another
two Tinas?
Tinas?
There's two Tinas.
Oh, my goodness.
God damn it. There's two Tinas.
Two Tinas.
Hmm.
It could be the same Tina.
Could be.
Could be.
I just used all the leaves that I have falling to cover my garden beds with flowers in them. Is this the right thing?
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah, I talked about this on Good Day Sacramento last time I was on.
Are you sure this isn't the Tina that you work with?
No, she texts me. Tina Makua?
Yeah, the Makua.
The Makua, as you call it. Yeah, she just texts me. Trust me, she just texts me. Hi, Tina. She doesn't listen. She says she listens at the gym, but I don't think she goes to the gym.
Probably not.
Anyways, all right. So it's so funny that, okay, when I was interning at Sunset Magazine when I was like 19, there were two different gardens. There was the test garden that we grew things that corresponded to all the articles and that were used for photographs and sort of research. It wasn't true test garden, but, and then there was the formal gardens that, were surrounded the building. And there are different gardeners. So Bud, who was my boss, he was sort of, he was talking about organic gardening before I'd even heard of that. And he's like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so who manages the sort of the display garden. He rakes up all the leaves. He gets rid of everything. And he's like, we need to leave the leaves. And so that was the first time that I was like, really saw the battle between those two ideas. And for me, it's always just been like, leaves. Okay. Well, if they're in the way, I'll move them. If they're, diseased, I'll move them. And then just this past year, I see everything on social media, all these people pushing like, leave the leaves. The leaves are great. Don't rake them up. Don't move them. And I'm like, where's this coming from? But I guess it's trying to like get to the people who are in the suburbs who just want that pristine, who have thought for years that maybe leaving leaves was a bad thing. And there's a lot of misconceptions about leaves. So I'm just going to break down the misconceptions that like pine needles, all their tannins are going to be bad for your soil, that they're going to make your soil too acidic. Same with oak leaves. And that's just not true. By the time they hit the ground, a lot of that has been depleted. We're talking about, dying leaves. They're not going to change the pH of your soil at all. The problem with pine needles, I would say, is they're not going to break down as fast as some of these other leaves, so they could build up in layers. And I've worked under pine trees before where you can't really plant anything. You have to dig 3 feet down to get to the soil. Things aren't going to grow underneath them because they're smothering anything. So in that regards, yes, you could rake up your pine needles every once in a while, but really that's what happens in a forest, right? And you have sort of really great compost in a forest. Now, oak leaves, it's the same thing. It's the tannins. Oh my gosh, the tannins, not going to change the pH. The tannins aren't going to be a problem. Now, the one possibility that's going to be a problem is black walnuts, even English walnuts. I live in the middle of an English walnut orchard with some black walnuts on the property. I can't say I've had even a problem with things growing underneath them, but black walnuts and walnuts have a chemical, it's a Junglaceae family, but it's junglins. That is an alleliopathic chemical that inhibits growth. And so if you have like a vegetable garden, you may not want to just take all these black walnut leaves and just put it in that soil. So just be aware of black walnut leaves. But if you just take a mix of leaves, or you just, only have like, say, a maple tree with a lot of leaves, yeah, you could put it on top. Now, just remember, anything that needs to be broken down and converted to usable nutrients, microorganisms are going to utilize the nitrogen already in your soil to help them do that. So you're going to have possibly a slight decrease in nitrogen when you do that, but it's minuscule. You won't notice it. So yeah, just don't worry about the leaves. If they're smothering your plants, you want to move them out of the area. If you have overhead sprinklers and you have 3 feet of pine needles underneath, or say redwood duff underneath, and the water's not getting to the soil, that could be a problem as well. But yeah, no, they work great as a compost. Put them in your compost bin. You could lay them on top. You could lay them underneath your compost. You could shred them. Anything you want. Now, I would say, like I mentioned before, if you have where you have a known disease or a potential disease, I want to be spreading those leaves everywhere, because certain diseases can overwinter on leaves. It's more common for, say, fungus and pests to overwinter on bark of trees than it is the leaves, but there's still a possibility, especially like, say, you have rose leaf spot rust on your roses. I wouldn't take up those rose leaves and then put them on top of your, your beds. I would put those, away. Same with like tomato leaves. If you were worried about something there, of course, then I wouldn't use those. But other than that, just don't worry about the leaves. Leave the leaves alone. Leave the leaves alone. There you go.
I like the bud reference.
The bud reference.
The bud reference.
Yeah.
From Foothill.
Oh, bud reference. Yeah, I thought you were talking about
God.
flower buds.
No.
No, Bud from Sunset.
Bud from Sunset.
Yeah, Chuck. It was Chuck from Foothill.
Chuck. Okay.
It was Chuck,
Cut
Bud.
me a little slack.
My mentors were Chuck, my professor from junior college, Foothill.
Yep.
Bud from Sunset Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Del Mar from Winchester Mystery House, who did an episode with me.
Yep.
We're still in contact. And yeah, those three.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pretty good ones.
Yep. My mentors were, I don't think I have any professional mentors.
Evil Knievel. Yeah. Yep. I would say that's your mentor. Yeah. All right. Was that all the questions?
That was it.
Okay. So if you have a question, you could post it on my Facebook, Marlene the Plant Lady. You could also direct message me on Instagram, Marlene the Plant Lady. You could email me at marlenetheplанtlady@gmail.com, especially if you have a suggestion for a name for a cat sanctuary. And I never mentioned this, but I do have a Patreon. So if you want to support the podcast, it's Flower Power Garden Hour on Patreon. And I will be back next year with a whole new lineup, and I promise I will get episodes out on a regular basis. But until then, happy gardening.